Welcome to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping Orange County. With your host, Don Camber.
Hello, live from the OC Talk Radio studios at UCI's Beal Applied Innovation Center. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber with another great guest positively impacting our community. Today I welcome Catalyst Family Inc. Director Resource Development Todd Eckert. Catalyst Family Inc. fosters strong communities through high-quality child care and youth development programs. Thank you, Todd, for being on Impact OC.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Todd, please explain why Catalyst Family Inc. was formed and who you serve.
Well, that's a great question. We started in 1975, and we began as subsidized childcare throughout California. Actually, we have a heavy emphasis here and then up in the Bay Area. We currently are serving over 40 school districts, right now about 8,500 kids, I think, total, and we have about, at this point, I think it's fluid because we have a constant enrollment, but we have about 3,500 after school kids in after school.
What are the programs that you provide?
Well, we are very diverse. Our thrust is we do infant care. In fact, 6 months all the way up to 5 years old. Anything that comes before people enter school. But our emphasis has been on the 4-year-old program. But Governor Newsom has decided to move that into the public school arena. So we've kind of shifted gears and have established after-school programs that help with tutoring and extending the school day.
I'd like you to talk about the different programs you offered for infant and toddler, preschool, transitional kindergarten enrichment, before and after school.
Yeah, well, it's just impressive. I haven't heard the laundry list done all together. Well, in fact, we obviously daycare is just that. We have a curriculum-based daycare that's based on the Reggio Emilia method, which is about individualized care for those kids. But we also we have different divisions at Catalyst, which is where we serve the community through other means. We have Catalyst Community, which does all sorts of resources to families on the whole. Everything from, finding a place to find daycare or to certify home daycare. We also do that. We're very closely tied to the state. And so we are certified in all aspects. And then we also have camps. And we are in the court system. We are contracted to the courts. They legally have to provide daycare in the court systems. So that's what we have, certified daycare in the court systems. And then we even are out in the migrant fields where the migrant workers are housed. We set up daycare there. So we're kind of all over the map, literally and figuratively. So.
What kinds of things are children learning?
Well, as I say, when we say curriculum-based, that is, if you're familiar with the Montessori method, I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, but it's a very similar method of teaching the whole child. So it's just not academia. It's by tactile, active learning. I was just up in Placerville at one of the migrant camps, for instance, watching, and it was fascinating that they're sitting and just the socializing element, we teach nutritional eating. And then also just the sheer table etiquette of a 2-year-old and learning how to use the tongs and how to just take as much as you want. I mean, all of this is playing to the whole child, which is fascinating to watch. It goes so far beyond just the intellectual and the academic.
And then before and after school, what kinds of programs do you offer?
Well, let's see. After school, we do a lot of activities, which you would almost label a camp. But we also, with expanded learning, is what the program is called. We have established a program that provides teaching and extends the school day. So we can help them with homework, or we can find tutors, or we do tutoring itself for the student who might need help extending the school day. So we really just figure out what the need of the child is, and we play to that.
And you're doing it at the schools?
Yes, good question. We are contracted for the most part to 40 different school districts, and we have to negotiate those contracts individually, even though we are 60% of our students are fully subsidized. So 40% are self-pay, 60% are subsidized by the state. We take great pride, and you would not know the difference between a subsidized care center versus a self-pay. The children themselves are very much involved with what the curriculum is going to be. So they work in conjunction with the teachers, and they kind of guide and see what their interests are.
And the parents of these children, what are the demographics of them?
Oh, what are the demographics of California? It's a very, very broad spectrum. Again, the socializing aspect's very exciting. We are very heavy in Orange County, and we are very heavy up in the Palo Alto, the Bay Area. So there's a tremendous amount of wealth, but what we sometimes don't realize is the unseen is there are people who are serving that community who maybe aren't, tech millionaires, and they all need daycare. In fact, I'm going to cheat here and selfishly mention something we've recently established, because this was brought to my attention through our boots on the ground, our teachers, and my COO, who identified this ever-increasing gap between the folks who want to stay in the workforce but are almost being penalized because they don't qualify for subsidized care of them. So the money they net often just goes to the daycare they need to stay in the workforce. So we've established this in-house, what we call an in-house scholarship fund. Instead of the state subsidizing you, we'll say, hey, we want you to stay in the workforce. We want you to push your career forward. We want you to provide for your family. We want to bolster the community. So we're aligning ourselves with corporations and banks and who are supporting this fund. So where the state lets up, we fill in that gap.
How involvement in these programs enhances the child and youth's well-being and the communities where they live?
Oh, well, as we were talking earlier, I come from an educational family of educators, and I carry a very severe bias. One reason I'm working for this mission is that there is not a world problem that can't be solved with strong early childhood development. That is when and you had mentioned this about children, is they're at 2 to 5 years old, their brains are sponges. And that's really where things are formulated, and you learn to learn, and you learn how you're going to learn. So I think you can't build a stronger community faster than by making sure we emphasize it. And I give huge credit, for 50 years, I give huge credit to California identifying that need. That is a resource. We are building the future, literally and figuratively, through our children.
Can you describe to us what a toddler will learn, what transitional kindergarten will learn, the different people who are in the program, what kinds of things they're learning, to give us an idea of what they're learning? I
think, as I mentioned earlier, that we measure the socializing aspect of it, and to stimulate the learning process. And I'm not an educator. I'm just fascinated by it in itself. But I think really you have to look at how are they absorbing things, how are they socializing. So if they set themselves up so that transition into kindergarten, into first grade is not traumatic, and where it gets a little more academic, straight academics, there is a lot less of an adjustment. And so they're learning, as I say, everything from how to share and how to participate and how to all those things that we sometimes have to relearn as an adult, how to be compassionate, how to be generous, how to be kind, all those things that, again, sometimes we forget. And so if you instill it in the child at that age, and these wonderful parents who continue that thought process at home, that's how you're building a stronger community.
And I understand parents are involved, and explain that.
Parents are involved. We are, as I say, we're statewide, but we are very regional in the sense that one center is going to emphasize maybe something different. That's where the need is. And the parents, and it's also very fluid, because the children obviously change, age out, and they enter the schools. So the parents' participation often changes. They, in fact, somebody had mentioned as I was running out the door that the parents are continuing the learning curve at home, but they are also, when they enroll their child, we do a parent survey. We literally give them a survey saying, what do you want your child to learn? How do you want them to learn? What do they? And that's really kind of fascinating. As the years move on, those answers are different. And we're fluid. We've been around for 5 decades, but we're very, very fluid and responsive to the parent.
What do they say they want their children to learn?
I think these days they want them to learn how to get along. I think there's so much screen time. There's so much staring apart from somebody else that the socializing element, as important as it has been, it seems like a no-brainer to us. But parents are having to actually ask that because the kids are getting so much of their socializing through a screen. So we really de-emphasize screen time because we want that interaction. So it's kind of interesting to have to put that into the curriculum itself. But you have to stay fluid.
Are there any studies that show children in the program do well in school?
That's a great question. Yes and no. More often than not, we are in direct correlation with a school because we are probably in the portal behind the school. Where the kids, so we'll have teachers come in and interact with our children before they've entered the school formally. So that transition and lessening the trauma of that is hugely beneficial. Plus, we can build a curriculum that will only be continued when they enter the former school in kindergarten.
And of course, it's good to say that children involved in programs before or after school are involved in quality programs before and after school instead of other things that they may not need to be involved with.
Well, yeah, there is something to say for, just quote unquote staying out of trouble. But I also think there's this natural curiosity that is catalyzed, excuse the pun, but there's a natural curiosity that is continued and catalyzed, for before and after school. It's fun to see the kids come out of school, the formal classroom, and then come to our after-school programs and come thundering in and ready to go. And I thought, man, that's where I want to be home. I want to go riding my bike as a kid and stuff. And these guys can't wait to continue and deal with our wonderful, wonderful staff.
Talk about the staff.
Oh, my gosh. I'm stunned by, honestly, I'll give you a personal anecdote. My mom, who taught for over 3 decades, said, "Oh, God, Tosh, you'd be such a fantastic teacher." And I said, I never want to have to work that hard for my money, because I know it was a 24/7 gig for her. She was always thinking about it. She was always compiling ideas and making her 4 boys run around and collect leaves for the next art project for her kids. I think it has to begin with, and it does with all of our staff, it has to begin with that passion. In the field, we pay very well compared to, in comparison, but with that said, it's never enough, because I know these guys are truly thinking it, making it a 24/7 gig. But they love working with our children.
What are the qualifications?
Well, for our younger care and our after-school programs, you don't have to be certified. You don't have to be accredited. But because we are an accredited program for the formal schooling, you have to be California certified.
And how are you funded?
How are we funded? Well, as I said, 60%, pretty even, about 60% are subsidized. So that's state contracts, where we have worked in conjunction with the state of California. 40% are self-pay. And then I've been hired to build a program that fills in those gaps that we talked about. For instance, another example, we have the scholarship fund, about the ever-increasing gap of people who are struggling to pay for it and yet not qualifying for subsidies. Recently, it was brought to my attention that, this is hard to say without even choking up. Somebody who runs our court programs said, "Can you go out and maybe raise some funds? We don't need a lot, but can you raise some funds? We have kids coming into the courts. They don't know until that day that they're coming into our children's waiting room while their family goes into court and deals with whatever they have to deal with. Many of those children then go from that children, we call them children waiting area, straight into foster care. And all we can do is throw their limited belongings in a bag and send them on their way." Can you imagine how frightening that'd be? Even when they come into the waiting room, how scary it is. And our compassionate staff takes them in and takes good care of them. And so we've established a fund called the Children's Relief Fund. And in fact, we just had, I guess I can say their name, City National Bank has stepped up and said, "Let's give you the seed money for that, because that's inexcusable. These kids need to have everything they can have in their court." So things like, fresh underwear and a toothbrush, and put it all in a backpack, and maybe snacks and some games, just something something, because there's so many question marks hanging over them when they deal with the court system. So that's what I'm talking about, where we're very fluid, we're very responsive. And I'm getting the needs more and more from the field, going, here's what's going on, here's where we have needs. So funding is coming more and more from the community itself.
Share some stories about people in the program.
About children?
Yes, please.
A broad spectrum. It's really kind of fun because you walk into a room and children are children, right? And it's not about color, it's not about demographic, it's about them just partaking in each other and not... You quickly realize that bias and all these things that we've grown that become commonplace in adults are taught because these kids are guileless. And I've watched, we had a book reading, we had a book signing, a wonderful woman. In fact, she's a broadcaster, and she also has written children's books and bilingual in Spanish. So we took her, she did a book signing and reading for the kids in a bilingual camp. And it was so cute to watch the response of the community come in, and these families who were so gracious, and a little girl who had never owned her own book before. And when I get choked up when I think about these things, she had never owned a book, and when the woman signed it and then let her take it, she kept trying to give it back, and her family kept telling her, no, you get to keep that book. I mean, these little victories are just, I think they're hugely influential and touching to watch. And it's a no-brainer. When I have people who are interested in supporting us or thinking of supporting us, I don't bother hitting them with an elevator speech. I simply say, come and visit a center with us. Come and visit a center.
What do the parents say about their children who've been in the program?
I think it says, simply that they love it, and I think the true measure is that do they send the kids, the siblings? Do the siblings come? And we are built. I should say, what drives me crazy, as I say, we've been around for 50 years, and when I say I work for Catalyst Family Inc., people are like, oh, what do they do? And I'm thinking, that's criminal. And so I appreciate resources like this to bring Catalyst to the community's attention, because we are very quiet and we're very word of mouth, because that's kept us going all these years. So we really haven't felt like we need to be out there broadcasting and branding and promoting, which is the ultimate compliment. But still, it'd be nice for more and more people to know that we're out there doing what we do.
What sets you apart from other after-school programs?
I think really that it's individualized learning. We do not just house and entertain the kids. We are built off of, I shared earlier with the Reggio Emilia. If you look it up, there's a gentleman named Reggio Emilia in Italy, post-World War II, and Italy gave these very small stipends to various villages to help them rebuild. And Reggio Emilia, the gentleman of this village, recognized the fact that our future is our children. And whereas people were building new community centers and all this, he said, we need to build a school. That's the first structure that needs to go up, because that's our future. And through that, he developed a method of, and we need to teach to the individual child. And that has, many, many decades later still holds true. Because we don't all learn the same way. We know that. We talked about that earlier. And play to the individual child. How are they absorbing? How are they not absorbing? And don't just template them. And we take great pride in doing that.
What have you learned from the program?
What have I learned from the program? I learned that if you are bored, sit down and talk with a 3-year-old. Go for a walk with a 4-year-old. It restores me. I mentioned earlier that I don't have a problem remembering what our mission is. Sometimes when you do what I do and you can get distant from it and you're dealing with whatever, you're eating more bad chicken at an event that's raising money and you think, you forget about your mission. I have no problem. I just go visit a center, and it invigorates me both as a human and as well as a development officer.
What kind of conversations have you had with 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds?
They're often more interesting than I have with adults. I think here's a funny parallel. I was just up in Seattle visiting with my folks who are 92 and 96. And my dad, who is going strong. And we had to drive down from Seattle to Olympia, and he's looking out the window, and the whole way down, he's talking about, wow, I didn't realize they were expanding the freeway here, and there's a sound wall. And his curiosity was, and I went, he sounds like there's a 3-year-old in the back seat. And I swear that's the fountain of youth, that curiosity. And I'm reminded of that with kids. Everything, they're just absorbing everything. There was hopefully not too far off subject, but I get this from the kids, is that there's a study that came out recently that you may have read about, where we all think that life goes quicker when we get older because it's less of a proportion of our life. When they said, no, we found that time, which is a human creation, is a measurement by moments. As we get older, we have less moments because we get more habitual. And you look at a 3-year-old, so much is new. So all those are moments. And when I go to the centers and I watch them, just what they're looking at is what they're thinking about. They don't have a hidden agenda. And I'm reminded of that as an adult. That's what I've learned from this program, to stay childlike.
Do you accept volunteers?
We do. For the most part, our program is where we would have a volunteer. In another organization, we hire teachers. So where we do have volunteers is at the centers themselves. So we but we are starting to build a volunteer program. Thank you for bringing that up. People are more than welcome to contact us at catalystkids.org. And we would love to have the spirit. Some people are helping renovate playgrounds or build gardens and stuff.
So what's the reaction from the public to this organization?
It's a testimonial that we've been around for 50 years. In fact, when I had just joined the Catalyst family, I come from another organization, and I was talking to my boss at the time. I said, we were coming home from the airport. We had gone up to our corporate office up in Sacramento. And he's dropping me at home in Costa Mesa, and I said, I'd like to do a center tour. I'd like to go out and visit and see it in action. And he said, okay, well, let's find one that's convenient for you. And he's literally dropping me off at my house. And he goes, well, you're next to Woodland Elementary. We have one right here. And so we are so integrated into the community, almost to a fault, because we're so integrated into the school system, into the community, that we often aren't out there celebrating us with large brands and T-shirts and hats and sweatshirts and bumper stickers, but we are part of the community already. So,
do you find that the children appreciate being in the program?
I think children often don't know what they appreciate. It's just that they're joyful and they're excited and they're curious. And I don't know of any greater endorsement of a program than a child who comes thundering into the classroom with excitement versus fleeing the classroom at the end of the day, like I did in junior high, for instance. So,
how would you like the program to grow?
I would like to tie us more to the community through corporate support. Yes, I mean that financially, but also to understand that we are building a stronger community by what we're doing. We're feeding you capable, learning, be as crass as a workforce that is capable and knows how to learn. And I guess, 60% of the jobs that high schoolers will have not been created yet. So you better have a workforce that comes up as nimble and knows how to learn, has learned how to learn. And I think we're starting that at a very early age, excited about learning and learning how to learn, because the world is moving very, very quickly.
So when you look at these young children, you see them as adults.
Oh, yes. I mean, I see our future is what I see. So if that's seeing them as adults, yes. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, I mean, I'm being corny and redundant, but it is our future. That's your future. My daughters are 23 and 21 now, and when I watch them handle life, I go, I'm so happy that they're in charge of the future. Because whatever I am, I'm just going, I'm glad it's in their hands.
Thank you, Catalyst Family Inc. Director of Resource Development, Todd Eckert, for being on Impact OC. And I thank everyone for tuning in. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber. Have an impactful day.
You've been listening to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping our community. Right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio.